Perspective with Carlos Delamo from Delamo Law. I tackle legal problems you face in your daily lives, whether in the area of personal injury, family law, real estate, foreclosures, immigration, or any other legal matter. We will give you practical information you need to know to understand the problem with a Christian perspective. We therefore ask you to send your questions to info at delamolaw.com, DELAMOLAW.com. My team, together with my wife and I, are ready to serve you, your friends and family, with answers to all your legal needs, and our first consultation is always free. We're going to continue today with the topic of personal injury, also known as tort laws, and the dynamics of an automobile accident. Personal injury law refers to the legal remedies and defenses involved in civil lawsuits. Personal injury is a civil, not a criminal case, which is initiated by the government. In a criminal case, the government initiates the litigation. In a civil case, the plaintiff begins the litigation. A lawsuit can be settled at any time from the date of the accident to when the jury walks out and gives their verdict. After that, it's a little too late. But up to that point, you can settle a case. Every tort claim, as we said last week, has two issues: liability and damage. Was the defendant liable for damages you sustained? And if so, what is the nature and extent of those damages? Basically, in our modern society, we find that everyone must have some kind of insurance to cover for auto accidents, slip and falls in the home, all of these things that are what we call torts. And most people that have money do have insurance coverage to cover their exposure to those problems. Therefore, I urge you first to give some serious consideration to your insurance policy. The state of Florida requires every vehicle with 4 or more wheels to maintain insurance coverage. When you register your vehicle, you must have proof of Florida coverage. The minimum requirement is $10,000 in personal injury protection and $10,000 in property damage liability. That doesn't cover the other person that got hit in the accident. That's called bodily injury.
So what insurance is important?
Well, there are two types of insurance that is important. One is for the defendant and one is for the plaintiff. The defendant needs to have bodily injury coverage. A lot of people that come to my office says, I have full coverage. Full coverage means a lot. Sometimes they think they have full coverage and they barely have coverage. What some people think is full coverage is what they need in the state of Florida in order to drive a car. And we'll get to that in a minute. Full coverage includes, for a defendant, in order to protect themselves, bodily injury coverage for damages caused to another person. Medical payments coverage to pay medical payments in excess for people that are injured as a result of the accident. Property damage coverage, and for themselves, PIP coverage. For the plaintiff, they need PIP coverage, and they need uninsured motorist coverage. Uninsured motorist coverage is very cheap, and it will help you tremendously to battle people, to get compensation when people do not have insurance. And insurance is expensive, so most people do not get all of the other thrills and whistles. For example, collision insurance. Collision insurance is insurance that covers your vehicle in case of an accident. It is the responsibility of the person who was at fault to pay for the damage for both vehicles. However, sometimes they contest fault. And if they contest fault, then it might take you 3 months or so before you ever get a car again. And so if you have your own collision policy, you can, with a deductible of $500, get your car repaired, and then the insurance company will go against the other person.
What is BIPD insurance?
There are 2 types of liability coverage for your car: bodily injury, as we discussed, and property damage. That's the BI is bodily injury, and the property damage is PD. They cover your legal liability if you're at fault in an accident that involves injury to others, people in the other car, pedestrians, etc., or damage to owned property, fences, garage doors, light poles, other cars, that kind of thing.
And do you have to have bodily injury insurance in Florida?
Unfortunately, as the law stands today, bodily injury liability coverage is not required to legally drive an automobile in the state of Florida. However, it can be if you have been convicted of a DUI.
So what is bodily injury limit?
Most states require drivers to purchase a minimum amount of liability coverage to protect them from financial disaster after an accident, not Florida. We do, like I said, we do not need to have bodily injury liability limits. Liability means responsibility, and it refers to two different types of financial responsibility in an accident. Bodily injury, to damages to people, and damages to property.
And what is 100, 300 bodily injury coverage?
If you're looking at your card, it'll say BI 100, 300. What that means is you have $100,000 of bodily injury coverage per person, 300 per accident. So if you have an accident where you hit 4 people are injured, one person gets 100 max, and all of them together, all 4 of them, the maximum they're going to get is $300,000.
What car insurance is required in Florida?
The state of Florida requires every vehicle with 4 or more wheels to maintain Florida auto insurance coverage. When you register your vehicle, you must have proof of Florida coverage. The minimum requirement is $10,000 personal injury protection and $10,000 property damage liability.
And what is personal injury protection insurance?
Personal injury protection stands for personal insurance protection, and it is an extension of car insurance that covers medical expenses and, in many cases, lost wages. It is called a NoFault insurance because it's covering the owner of the policy for his medical expenses, will be covered at 80%, and his lost wages, which will be covered at 60%. It doesn't cover the persons that you hit.
Is it mandatory to have NoFault insurance in Florida?
Yes, it is. Florida is a no-fault insurance state. If you are injured in an accident, your car insurance will pay your medical cost up to your policy limits, regardless of who caused the accident. And like I said, in Florida, it's $10,000 for PIP and $10,000 for property damage.
Tell us a little bit about uninsured motorist insurance.
Okay, that is a relatively cheap insurance that you can add on to your policy, which covers when someone else hits you and has no insurance coverage. Your uninsured motorist policy will step into their place and pay whatever the premiums are, whatever the damages are, up to the amount of coverage that you have. To give you an example is uninsured motorist coverage. Let's say you have $50,000 in uninsured motorist coverage. The other person hits you. Now, he can be uninsured or underinsured. Let's say your damages are $100,000 and he only has a $10,000 policy. Well, he's going to give you his $10,000 policy really quick, but then you're still out $90,000. Well, that uninsured motorist policy comes in to step in and to give you an additional $50,000. So now instead of being, $90,000 out, you're only $40,000 up. Hopefully that's not the situation. Unfortunately, most people do not get uninsured motorist coverage. And for the value, it's the best thing you can have on your policy. I'm not an insurance agent, but I'm telling you this.
Can you sue your own car insurance company?
Yeah, you can. You're going to sue your own insurance company in an uninsured motorist claim, because your insurance company, if they will not pay the just value of the compensation, meaning the provable damages that you have, then you're going to have to sue them because they're going to step into the shoes of the person who caused the accident. Mirka, how fast can you verify insurance coverage?
Immediately after we sign up the client, we send a letter of representation to both insurances, our client and the defendant, to verify what are their limits.
Yeah, so I would say, within a week?
Within a week, we have the answer.
Okay, so once you retain us, we first send a letter to your insurance company. As soon as we send a letter to your insurance company, they need to deal through the attorney, not through you. So don't give them a statement until after you've got an attorney who can properly prepare you for that statement. The same thing happens with the defendant. The defendant's insurance company is going to call to get a statement from you quickly. you're going to always tell the truth. I will never tell a client not to tell the truth. But the way you say things could damage you. And so you need to know the elements necessary of your case to be able to tell the truth accurately.
Okay, so tell us, what do you mean before when you said negligence, intentional, or strict liability?
90% of the tort law is based on negligence. Negligence means that you have a duty to, like they say in a car situation, you have the duty to operate your vehicle safely. If you breach that duty by speeding, running a red light, running a stop sign, making an illegal lane change, then if you cause an accident, you are negligent. That's something that you have to prove, but sometimes it's obvious. You've heard, in an automobile accident where you're stopped and somebody rear ends you, that's pretty clear fault. But you'd be surprised how many times in the litigations that I've had, people have said that they backed into the car that was behind them. In other words, the car behind them comes up and slams into the car in front. There's significant damage. And they said that damage was caused by the front vehicle who was stopped at a red light backing into him. All of these things happen in litigation. That's why litigation has become such a serious problem in the state of Florida and throughout. It's not a surprise that Florida leads the nation in fraudulent claims. We thank you very much for listening. If you have any comments or questions about what you've heard or have any legal questions, send me an email at info@delamolaw.com. Or you can call me at 305-443-7005. My team are ready to serve you, your friends, and family members with all your legal needs.